Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept our humble obeisances. All
Jai
glories
Hare.
to Srila Prabhupada. Sorry, Prabhuji, we were all updating our Zoom. That's why we couldn't join
Jai.
early.
Jai, please accept.
So we can start with the Mangla Charan. I can do the Mangla Charan. Om Ajnana Timirandasya.
And I also think I'm going to have to switch off my camera. Sorry, it's too slow.
Yeah. I'll do the same after the Mangla Charan.
Okay.
Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurulmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri UtapadaKamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitanscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Vrindavaneshwari Shabani Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna Krishna,
Hare
Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare
Rama
Rama,
Hare
Hare Rama, Rama
Rama
Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances and
Jai, please accept mine.
And
Glories to
please accept
Prabhupada.
the Dandavat Pranam from everybody who have joined the group and are about to join. And Hare Krishna to all the devotees who have joined today. We are reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on Canto 2, Chapter 9, which is Answers by Citing the Lord's Version. And we are on the last text, text 46 today. And then we start the new chapter, which is chapter 10, still Canto 2, but chapter 10, which is Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. And we'll do the first, second, and third text for today. So I hand over to you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Jai, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. I don't know if it's the same for my sound coming to you, but your voice is breaking up a little bit. Is my sound okay?
Yours is perfect. I think because my
Oh.
video was on, it was breaking up.
Oh,
But
no,
you are,
yeah, yours is perfect now. That's fine.
yeah,
Okay, thank you.
Hare Krishna. It's raining
Okay,
cats and dogs here, so maybe that's the reason. But
I
we
see.
can start. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Canto 2, Chapter 9, Text 46, which is the last verse in Chapter 9. Yad utaham tvaya pristo vairajat purushadidam yata setat upakshaste prishnan anyam chakrishna saha. O King, your questions as to how the universe became manifested from the gigantic form of the personality of Godhead, as well as other questions, I shall answer in detail by explanation of the 4 verses already mentioned. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. As stated in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, this great transcendental literature is the ripened fruit of the tree of Vedic knowledge, and therefore All questions that can be humanly possible regarding the universal affairs, beginning from its creation, are all answered in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The answers depend only on the qualification of the person who explains them. The 10 divisions of Srimad Bhagavatam, as explained by the great speaker, Srila Shukadeva Goswami, are the limitation of all questions, and intelligent persons will derive all intellectual benefits from them by proper utilization. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the second canto and 9th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Answers by Citing the Lord's Version. So here, now, Shukadeva Goswami is speaking to Maharaj Parikshit, and he's explaining, because sometimes it's a bit of a misconception sometimes. I'm not saying that it's our misconception, but I've heard devotees say from time to time over the years that if you read the Chatur Shloka and you understand the Chatur Shloka, then everything else falls into place and you don't need to do anything else. That's a misunderstanding. Yes, the Chatur Shloka, Sri Krishna has invested the entire Srimad Bhagavatam in the Chatur Shloka. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj has stated that he could lecture for months and months and months on end from one verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam without repeating. And Ananta Shesh, he's repeating the personified Vedas, he's repeating with his millions and millions and millions of mouths, constantly repeating shlokas from the Vedic scriptures. So it's not that the rest of the 19,996 verses in the Bhagavatam are irrelevant. That's a misunderstanding. Yes, everything is contained in the Chatur Shloka. They're like sutras, they're like codes from which we can extract, practically speaking, the entire Bhagavatam, indeed the entire Vedic literature. But then we deny ourselves the rest of the wonderful, wonderful leelas and the knowledge and the instructions that are contained in the rest of the Bhagavatam, which is a misunderstanding. So, Prabhupada is saying in the purport, quite appropriately, this transcendental literature is the ripened fruit of the tree of Vedic knowledge. Therefore, all questions that can be humanly possible regarding the universal affairs beginning from creation are all answered. All questions. So Prabhupada says in the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, if you may remember, from when a long time since I read the introduction, that the entire Vedic literature, everything is contained in Bhagavad Gita. And you don't need to read anything else because Bhagavad Gita is spoken by the Lord himself. And Srimad Bhagavatam, for the most part, not exclusively, for the most part, is spoken about the Lord. So, of course, Krishna has spoken the Chatur Shlok, but for the most part, Srimad Bhagavatam is spoken about elaborating on the pastimes of the Lord, elaborating on the various instructions which are beneficial for our progress and our spiritual development. But it doesn't mean that, that because the Chatur Shloka is there, or the Chatur Shloka in Bhagavad Gita either, we just read the Chatur Shloka and then the rest is completely irrelevant. That's not a fact. But some devotees do have that impression, and Prabhupada doesn't agree with that. So all questions that are humanly possible are contained in the Srimad Bhagavatam. But then Prabhupada goes, that's one thing for the questions. But then Prabhupada goes on to qualify that by saying, again, very appropriately, answers depend only on the qualification of the person who explains them. So Maharaj Parikshit, he's asked many, many questions, but who's he getting the answers from? From Shukadeva Goswami. So ultimately, if we are to give, when we're asked questions, if we are to give the right answer, we must be in tune with the disciplic succession, what are the previous acharyas saying? What is the sampradaya saying? So the great speaker, Prabhupada says, has explained the Srimad Bhagavatam and the limitation of all questions, and intelligent persons will derive all intellectual benefits from them by proper utilization. So this is the key. Intelligent persons, we have to be dhira, we have to be sober if we want to get anything out of any parts of the Vedic scriptures. It's crucial, and if we're not sober, Prabhupada explains that in many places. Prabhupada explains the word so dhira not only as sober, but somebody who's sane. So how do we come to the conclusion of who's sane and who's insane? Well, the whole everybody practically speaking in the material world is described as being insane. Why? Because they're obsessed with the bodily identification of life, which is simply not a fact. So the first thing we have to realize, the first thing I have to realize, is that you're not the body, you're spirit soul. So when we get to that point, the science of self-realization, when we get to the point of understanding who we are, then we can begin to understand our relationship with the absolute truth. So let's dive in quickly into the chapter 10. The Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. Again, the most appropriate chapter. So we had the previous chapter, the answers by citing the Lord's version. Now Shukadeva Goswami is going to begin to explain how the Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. That is literally all questions, not just questions on spirituality. So many answers, especially when we reach eventually, as we will. We've come so far. We're now on chapter 10 of the second canto. Who would have thought when we started it with the first canto that we so quickly get to this point? And so, like for instance, the Bhagavatam is explaining the whole cosmic manifestation, how it works, how the planetary systems are functioning, however, and this is a completely different set of knowledge or understanding as to how the material scientists explain it. Even something as simple as time. Just if we just examine the calendar for a moment, if I may lapse into a little deviation, like our calendar. Tomorrow we're celebrating the disappearance day of Srila Prabhupada, and it's the 5th of November tomorrow. With Srila Prabhupada, he disappeared on the 14th of November in 1977. Why are we celebrating on the 5th of November? Because we go by the lunar calendar. Because the solar calendar, as it is presented by Western civilization, is so far removed from the actual concept of reality that it has no relationship whatsoever to anything in relationship to time. Like we're now in October, so November, and we just entered October is the 8th month, right? September is the 7th month. The word sept means 7, and October is the 8th. November is the 9th month, but it's not. It's actually the 11th month. December, dec means 10. So, but there are 12 months. What was his name? The Roman Emperor, another Roman Emperor, and to add, some false prestige to our already puffed up situation, they just added in these months. And so we're going to call the month of July, the month of August, after our emperors. So they just fabricated out of thin air, like the the world economists do. They just fabricate this money out of thin air and bring the whole world into debt. So the whole world is running on a demoniac methodology. And even with regards to the calendar, even regards to something as simple as time. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, time I am. So we have to completely and totally discount, for the most part. Of course, we can utilize everything in the service of Krishna, but the educational system we have today is completely at variance with what we're going to find in the Bhagavatam. It's been, even in India, the Bhagavatam has been promulgated as some kind of a mythological stories that just are conjured up out of thin air from some storytellers from ancient times. But Prabhupada, he came and he changed that, and he changed it to the point where people now have respect for the ancient Vedic scriptures, much more than previously, before Srila Prabhupada's time. He rejuvenated and kick-started, even in India, the faith in the scriptures, and the fact that they're taken as historical events and actual events that happened, not based on some mythological theory. So today we're beginning chapter 10, and the Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. Sri Sukha Uvacha Atrasargo Visargascha Sanam Poshanam Uttaya Manvantaresha Nukata Nirodo Mukti Ashraya. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there are 10 divisions of statements regarding the following: the creation of the universe, the subcreation, the planetary systems, protection by the Lord, the creative impetus, the change of manus, the science of God, returning home back to Godhead, liberation, and the summum bonum. So, verse 2. To isolate the transcendence of the summum bonum, the symptoms of the rest are described, sometimes by Vedic inference, sometimes by direct explanation, and sometimes by summary explanations given by the great sages. So then we go on to verse 3, the verse that we're going to cover today. The elementary creation of 16 items of matter, namely the 5 elements: fire, water, land, air, and sky, sound, form, taste, smell, touch, and the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, and mind, is known as sarga, whereas the subsequent resultant interaction of the modes of material nature is called visarga. So now we go into the purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In order to explain the 10 divisional symptoms of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there are 7 continuous verses. The first of these, under reference, pertains to the 16 elementary manifestations of earth, water, etc., with material ego composed of material intelligence and mind. The subsequent creation is a result of the reactions of the above-mentioned 16 energies of the first Purusha, the Mahavishnu incarnation of Govinda, as later explained by Brahma in his treatise Brahma Samhita 547 as follows. Ya karana naiva jale bachati sma yoga nidramananta jagadanda saroma kupa adara shaktim avalamya param samurtim govinda madipurusham tamam bhajami. The first Purusha incarnation of Govinda, Lord Krishna, known as Mahavishnu, goes into a yoga nidra mystic sleep, and the innumerable universes are situated in potency in each and every hair hole of his transcendental body. As mentioned in the previous verse, Shrutena, or with reference to the Vedic conclusions, the creation is made possible from the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly by manifestation of his particular energies. Without such a Vedic reference, the creation appears to be a product of material nature. This conclusion comes from a poor fund of knowledge. From Vedic reference, it is concluded that the origin of all energies, namely internal, external, and marginal, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as explained here and before, the illusory conclusion is that creation is made by the inert material nature. The Vedic conclusion is transcendental light, whereas the non-Vedic conclusion is material darkness. The internal potency of the Supreme Lord is identical with the Supreme Lord, and the external potency is enlivened in contact with the internal potency. The parts and parcels of the internal potency, which react in contact with the external potency, are called the marginal potency, or the living entities. Thus, the original creation is directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or Param Brahman, and the secondary creation as a reactionary result of the original ingredients is made by Brahma. Thus, the activities of the whole universe are started. Om Gyanatamidandasya Ganangana Shalakaya Chaksharam Militam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So, in verse 2 and also in verse 1 and also in the purport, Prabhupada is mentioning about summum bonum. So Prabhupada was educated by the British in Scottish Churches College. So he uses quite a bit of Latin in his vocabulary, like bona fide and summum bonum and a priori and different things like that. We used to use quite a bit of Latin because I grew up in a Catholic family and educated in a Catholic school. So we also use quite a bit of Latin. Up to the early 1960s, the entire celebration of Mass was conducted in Latin. It was only in the 1960s and later on that they began to celebrate the Mass in the local languages like English, French, German, or whatever country you happen to live in. Before that, we didn't have a clue what any of the Mass was about. We didn't have a clue what it was all about. And because it was in a language none of us knew, but we picked up these odd phrases here and there. For me, at least, in my early teens, as soon as the Mass changed to English, I never went to church again because then I knew what it was all about. And when I found out what it was all about, then it had no interest for me whatsoever. But before it was in a strange language, it was kind of mystical. However, probably using this summum bonum, the verse indeed itself is using summum bonum, and which is a Latin expression meaning the highest or the ultimate good. So what is the highest or the ultimate good? I think it was, what was his name? Cicero, who first, the Roman philosopher, he's the one who who coined the phrase amongst many other phrases that we use even today. So the ancient Greek philosophers, the Roman philosophers, they had quite a thing going for them. So it's the ultimate good. So the ultimate good, of course, if we see it in that sense, to isolate the transcendence of the ultimate good, the symptoms of the rest are described sometimes by Vedic inference. So in today's verse, Prabhupada is mentioning about the marginal, the Tatashta is describing the original creator, Vishnu, the secondary creator, Brahma, and then there's us. We're in the marginal potency. We're not really creators in that sense. On the level of the super soul, on the level of Vishnu, but we are still nonetheless, we have to some degree that potency to create. The parts and parcels of the internal potency which react in contact with the external potency are called the marginal potency, or us, the living entities. So the whole material cosmic manifestation is there. Brahma is the secondary creator, but without the glance of Lord Vishnu, nothing happens. Absolutely nothing happens. Even with Brahma's energy, with Brahma's intelligence, his Shakti, absolutely nothing happens without the glance of the Lord over the whole cosmic manifestation. And from there, it's invested with potency. Now, Prabhupada is explaining at length here in the purport, the creation appears to be a product of material nature. This conclusion comes from a poor fund of knowledge. From Vedic reference, it is concluded that the origin of all energies, internal, external, and marginal, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as explained before, the illusory conclusion is that creation is made by the inert material nature, as is the case today. So it may appear laughable or somewhat humorous to a devotee that the Big Bang theory is still the main theory that is promulgated in all the universities around the world. I was watching the other day on YouTube a lecture by Brian Cox, Professor Brian Cox, who appears on the BBC quite frequently, a person I like a lot and who's a very intelligent man. And I've listened to many of his lectures. And he still goes along with this idea, and they still go along with the idea, and that they went to the moon and they landed on the moon, and all these things are completely and totally acceptable to the modern educationalists, the slaughterhouse for the mind people. And it's just so sad that they don't have access or refuse to have access to the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yet, in an interview I saw with a prominent devotee just this morning, he was saying that all the big scientists in the last 100 years in the 20th century, Niels Bohr, Tesla, Einstein, they all paid homage to the Vedic scriptures. All of them. Oppenheimer, certainly he paid homage to Bhagavad Gita. Time I am the destroyer of all these worlds. He quoted that verse when the atomic bomb was being tested in the Nevada desert. So all of the big intellectuals, all the big scientists, they all pay homage to the Vedic scriptures. I've been to Geneva many times, in Switzerland quite a few times, and in front of the CERN headquarters in Geneva in Switzerland, there's a big Murti of Lord Shiva doing the cosmic dance. So even they are paying homage to the Vedic scriptures. So it's gradually coming around, but still the vast majority of the population of the planet, the vast majority of the academic institutions around the world, they still go on the Big Bang Theory, and that's the absolute truth, and nobody will deviate them from that point. So we have a long way to go in presenting the philosophy of the Vedic scriptures to the world. We have reached a long way, we've come a long way, but we have a long way to go. So Prabhupada is saying here, as explained, the illusory conclusion is that creation is made by the inert material nature. Complete opposite of the Vedic conclusion. It's like if you take the analogy to its comical extreme, you take all the different materials that go into the construction of a normal house, a household, family house. You take all the electric wires, and you take all the carpentry, the wood, the cement, and the roof tiles, and refrigerator, and the bathroom stuff, and your cooking appliances, and everything like that. And you take them in a big hill, and you put them in the middle of your compound, and you put a stick of dynamite underneath, and you blow them up. And then when you blow it up, you get a perfectly formulated house. So this is laughable. Obviously, it's laughable. It takes a huge amount of intelligence and so on to make a house and put all the particular appliances that go into the making of a house. It takes a huge amount of effort and intelligence and foresight and planning and so on and so forth. But as far as the scientists are concerned, there was a big explosion, and from this big explosion, all this perfect order came into existence. I mean, we can laugh at it as devotees, but This is taken very seriously in all the academic institutions of the world. This is coming from a poor fund of knowledge, Prabhupada says. The Vedic conclusion is transcendental light, whereas the non-Vedic conclusion is material darkness. And Prabhupada goes on to say, and not in this purport but elsewhere, Prabhupada said, okay, let's accept the fact that they had all these chemicals that were all in this compressed state, ready to blow up, and from there the universe came, and all this order came from this chaos. Prabhupada said, where did the chemicals come from? That they don't even want to discuss. So, yes, we have made tremendous progress in the field of technological advancement in the last 100 years. There's no comparison with the feudal system that was in existence in the even the 19th, 18th, and 17th century. I mean, it's a transformed world completely. Who would have thought of 400 or 500 people sitting in a jet and flying around the world? And it's become so common. It's like riding in your car to go to the supermarket, practically speaking. But that advancement we can acknowledge is without a doubt there. The advancement in medical science, the advancement in research, and so on and so forth, everything is there. Everybody acknowledges it. As Prabhupada said in a lecture I heard this morning, he was giving a lecture on the nectar of devotion in Vrindavan. Prabhupada was saying, just this microphone, it's made up of so many material elements. And we will acknowledge that these material elements are put together by intelligent people. But we're using it in the service of Krishna. So if only they could use everything that's already there in the service of the Lord, everything would be perfect. The problem is they have another story, because everything is designed, everything is made, everything is created to advance the cause of sense gratification, which is completely and totally the opposite for the reason that we were put in this human form of life in the first place. So the very foundation, the summum bonum, the absolute conclusion for which we were given the opportunity to enter this human form of life, it's no longer there. So it's completely and totally divorced from reality. Whereas the Vedic scriptures is completely and totally designed for the ultimate good, and for the complete and total expression of what is good for our society, what is good for human society. So the human society, the principle of goodness in which all moral values are included or from which they are derived, is the literal dictionary meaning of the expression summum bonum. The principle of goodness in which all moral values are included or from which they are derived. So is that the case with the material scientists? No, it's not. They claim that they're doing this and that and the other to advance the cause of humanity, but in practice they do the opposite. They do everything to bring humanity away from its original purpose, which is to understand our relationship with the absolute truth, our relationship with our source, our relationship with ourselves. So everything they've tried, as Prabhupada has explained so many times, everything they try is simply and totally a failure. In Krishna consciousness, or in spiritual life, we could say, Prabhupada uses the expression, failure is the pillar of success. Whereas in the material world, failure is simply that. It's simply a failure. Whereas if you're endeavoring in Krishna consciousness to reach the absolute truth and to reach the absolute goal, then your life is successful, even if you don't succeed. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, in this endeavor there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. So, what is that type of fear? To lose the purpose of our life, to lose the summum bonum, to lose what we are put here to do, to lose our moral equilibrium, our moral balance, and to simply go off in a direction, even though we are academics, we're intellectuals, We want to advance the cause of humanity. Many, many, many scientists, many people are sincere. There's no doubt about it. And they're trying their best to advance the cause of society. But the problem is the demoniac forces are so much in control, and demoniac forces have so much to offer the world under the illusion that we're going to be better and everything is going to be fine, that people go towards the demoniac side because it's easier. Probably gives the example of the United Nations over and over again. It's set up to stop wars, and it has done absolutely nothing. Not a single day has gone by since the inception of the United Nations. Not a single day has passed when there hasn't been a war. So it's a total failure, but they can't admit that. It's impossible for the materialists to admit that it's going in the wrong direction. That's why we have to wake them up. We talk about a woke society. Jeev Jago, Gora Chandra Bole, Kota Nidra Lao Maya Pisa Chira Kole. You have to wake up. Wake up, sleeping souls. You're sitting in the lap of a witch called Maya. We're all sitting in the lap of a witch called Maya. From the topmost position in the universe down to the lowest, all are places of ignorance. From the topmost place in the universe, from Brahmaloka all the way down to the insignificant ant, they're all places of ignorance. So the only shelter we have is this new chapter that we're starting on. The Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. But we ourselves, we have to be convinced of that. And if we're convinced of it, then we can in turn convince others. But we ourselves have to be convinced first. We have to join the army of self-realizers so as we know with conviction when we go out into the world that regardless of who we meet or what they say or what contrary information they may have, which is contrary to the conclusion of the Vedic scriptures, that it's irrelevant. But we have to be armed with knowledge. As Krishna said to Arjuna, armed with the weapon of yoga, stand and fight. Stand and fight. That's all we have to do. Just stand and fight and be bold, and be bold in our expressions of our devotional service. So Prabhupada is saying here, the internal potency of the Supreme Lord is identical with the Supreme Lord, and the external potency is enlivened in contact with the internal potency. So as soon as we come in contact with the internal potency, the external potency, which is us, we come in contact with the internal potency, then we become enlivened. As soon as the Lord glances over the universe, it automatically becomes potent. Just like when we offer boga to the Lord, as soon as the Lord glances over it with our plea, with our prayers, please accept this small offering. As soon as the Lord glances over it, it becomes prasadam. And we ourselves, we all have the experience, all of us. As soon as we taste prasadam, we know the difference between prasadam and boga. We just know it because it's a completely different experience. And the devotees, they're very, very fortunate that they have that opportunity to engage in this way. And Prabhupada goes on to say, the parts and parcels of the internal potency which react in contact with the external potency are called the marginal potency, or the living entities. So marginal means literally we are on the margin. We're in this state that we're in now, we're neither spiritual nor material. We're on the border. And Prabhupada gives the examples like when you're walking on the shore, then as you're walking on the shore of the beach, so the waves are coming in, and sometimes the waves are covering the land, and then the waves go out, and then the waves, the land is exposed, and then the waves come in again. So we're on the margin. We're neither in the ocean, we're neither on the land, we're literally on the margin. So the creation, the original creation is directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead or the Param Brahman, and the secondary creation as a reactionary result of the original ingredients is made by Brahma. Thus, the activities of the whole universe are started. So now this whole chapter is going to be giving some wonderful answers to the amazing questions, and Shukadeva Goswami is going to be elaborating through these answers. He's going to be elaborating on the Chatur Shloka that we just covered for a long period of time. And it grows and grows and grows and becomes more and more and more interesting. So I will stop there, and I will ask if there are any questions or any comments that anybody might have. I was going to do, but completely forgot, because I got confused with the update from Zoom, and that I was trying to sort that out, and I didn't know if I was even going to get online at all. I was going to do a little bit of a talk about what we were supposed to cover last week, but again I didn't do it, about the 5 stages of liberation, but we've kind of run out of time, so I'll do that maybe the next time I talk. So are there any questions or comments from what we've mentioned so far this evening?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much for today's class. And I know this is technical and it might be difficult. So I'm sure there are questions. But before I open it up for questions, just if you can explain the internal, external, and marginal, as you said about the sea, ocean, and then so the ocean is the spiritual energy, and the land is material
Yes,
energy,
yeah, it could
and we
be,
are in
yeah,
between.
yes, that would be a kind of or the other way around. The land would be the spiritual, the ocean would be it really, it's not really, it's just an analogy. And we're standing on the shore. So when we don't come, I know we use the expression back to Godhead, and again, it's a slight misconception that we're going back to Godhead in the sense that we came from the spiritual world, so we're going back to the spiritual world. It's an expression. It's not the real reality of we didn't fall from the spiritual world. When you go back to the spiritual world, Krishna emphasizes this in Bhagavad Gita, you don't return. So we didn't come from the spiritual world. We came from the Tatashta. We came from the margins. We are Tatashta, and that is our position. So there's 2 expressions that we use. There's Nitya Bada and Nitya Mukta. So eternally liberated, eternally conditioned. So we are in the eternally conditioned. So we're the Nityabada because we came from the Tatashta. And if we don't get our act together, we go back to the Tatashta. But then beyond that, again, it's all to do with mukti. Maybe I should have started off with the explanation of mukti, because mukti, again, is a misconception that we imagine that mukti means merging into the Brahman. But it's not merging into the Brahman. That's the biggest misconception amongst the devotees, actually, that you merge into the Brahman. Like what we're reading, because it's Damodarastakam and lifting of Govardhan Hill. We were reading recently about Krishna killing Kamsa. So Prabhupada is explaining in the Krishna book that Kamsa, he got liberation to go to the planet of Narayan. He didn't get the liberation in the sense that he just merged into the body of Krishna. He got liberation to go to the planet of Narayan and take on a 4-armed form, exactly like the Lord. So this idea of mukti, it's like tatashta. We think that we're going back to the spiritual world. The tatashta is on the edge. It can be one or the other. When we become more or less conscious at the beginning of the creation, when we're again given, because we've gone through this cycle so many times, where when we're conscious at the beginning of the creation, we're in the tatashta, we're on the edge. So we're on the edge, so we can look into the material sphere, we can look into the spiritual world, and because of our own free will, then we choose to come into the material world, as strange as it may seem. But it doesn't mean that we come into the material world because we want to come into the material world in a mood of suffering. Of course, nobody wants to suffer, but the material atmosphere is so strong that we just go from one sense of trying to enjoy, trying to squeeze the last drop of juice out of the orange that has already been sucked dry, that we just go from one species to another, to another, to another, till we end up in the situation that we're in today. We're fortunate that we're now given an opportunity finally to get out of that situation and actually go to the spiritual world. The fact is, there are literally millions of Jivan Muktas in the material universe, and they are essentially free to do almost anything they desire, being fully liberated from Maya's avidya, karma, and the influence of the gunas. Millions of them. So they're living out their material desires, we could say. They're liberated. They're liberated from the material desires. Is somebody who has attained mukti, but is still bound to their material body due to remaining karmas. When those karmas have been experienced and they finally die, they attain eternal liberation according to their specific desires. But while we remain in the material world, we can enjoy freely in the higher realms or anywhere they desire. Let me give an example. Um, when news filtered back to Srila Prabhupada that Vishnu Jan, his wonderful Gandharva singing, Prabhupada said he was like a Gandharva. Vishnu Jan Swami, of which so many tapes and records have been made of his singing. Prabhupada loved his singing. He absolutely loved it. Prabhupada used to always say, I love coming to Los Angeles just to hear Vishnu Jan singing. So Vishnu Jan, it was rumored that somehow or other he had misunderstood some instruction by Srila Prabhupada about the sannyas ashram, and he kind of felt that he had fallen down from the high position of a sannyasi, and he heard from Srila Prabhupada on a morning walk that the only way to rectify the fall down of a sannyasi is that he must take his own life. So Vishnu Jan took that literally, and he went off and he jumped into the Ganga and he was never seen again. So it was a really sad story. And Prabhupada said, no, in Kali Yuga, this should not be done. When Prabhupada heard, as the rumors filtered back to Prabhupada, Prabhupada said, no, in Kali Yuga, this should not be done. But Vishnu Jan, he hadn't heard that bit. He only heard the literal instruction that Srila Prabhupada had given. So then Prabhupada went on to say, anyway, Vishnu Jan Swami, he has gone to Swargalok, and in Swargalok he's fulfilling or renewing his whatever material desires he may have remaining, and then after that he would go straight to Krishna Loka, because Srila Prabhupada absolutely loved Vishnu Jan, just like he loved all his disciples, but Srila Prabhupada picked out certain disciples like Jayananda. And Srila Prabhupada wrote a wonderful letter to Jayananda again, eulogizing about Jayananda and praising him as a pure devotee. And that's why we have Jayananda's picture on all the Rath carts all around the world. So if there is some small trace of some material desire, then we live that out in the higher realms. And then from there, go to the spiritual world. But the tempting allure of mukti, and which is discussed at length by Jiva Goswami in his Jivan Muktas in the Priti Sandarbha, and he describes so many details about mukti in there. It's a huge treatise, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages, all discussing mukti, the tatashta. Tatashta is a big, big, big subject. But suffice it to say that we're on the borderline. We have the choice, as we always do, because we always have free will. As Prabhupada has taught us on so many occasions, free will is based, love of God, love of Krishna, connection with Krishna is based on love. It cannot be based on force. If we take the element of love out of it, then it's just ritualistic activity. That's what's the difference between Krishna consciousness and religion. Because as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, give up all varieties of religion, everything, and just surrender unto me. I will give you protection. So this is the goal, that we reach the stage where we're actually Krishna conscious. So in order to become Krishna conscious, we have to be conscious of our own position. And this subject of Tatashta is a very deep subject. We can go into that some other time, but suffice it to say for now, to give it an oversimplistic conclusion, we're on the border. We're always on the border, and we always have the choice whether to go on the material side or whether we want to go on the spiritual side. If we want to go on the spiritual side, all facility is available from the teachings of the Guru, from the teaching of the previous Acharya, from the teachings of the Lord himself, from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, from Lord Rishabdev, from Lord Krishna, from all, the whole disciplic succession, the whole Sampradaya is on our side to help us. But at the same time, if we're on the border, we also have the allurement of the material world, which is not a joke. Maya is not a joke. Maya is also Krishna's energy. She also has a lot of Shakti, and that is very attractive. So we have to decide which one do we want to go on. Now, you can enjoy in the material world just like you can enjoy in Swargaloka, but at the same time, when your period of enjoyment in Swargaloka is up, then you must come back and then you start again. But if you're going through the motions of just finishing off your good karma, and then after your good karma, you're from that stage of liberation, then you go to the spiritual world. That's when it takes on a completely different meaning. It's a deep subject matter, and it needs a lot of thought, a lot of intellect, a lot of consideration, a lot of debate. It's not something that you can just give a flippant, answer in the space of a couple of minutes. But it does need. Maybe we can set aside a period of time apart from our Bhagavatam classes when we can dedicate maybe a week to discussing mukti, liberation, and tatashta, which are linked so intrinsically together. I don't know if that gives you any kind of an answer to your question. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you very much, Prabhuji. What did you say? Jivananda and Jiva?
I'm
You
sorry?
used you used two phrases, Jivananda and Jiva something. Maybe I
Well,
can go back.
either eternally conditioned,
Mm-hmm.
which is Jiva Bada, or eternally liberated, Jivan Mukta. So we're either one or the other. But the the Jivan Mukta is eternally liberated, and the Bada is one who is always conditioned. So we're in both. We're in the middle. So we can have the choice to be eternally liberated or eternally conditioned. It's completely and totally up to us. So if we're going to go on the material side, then of course we're eternally conditioned, because eternality, it's such a long time, and but eternal doesn't mean that no beginning, no middle, no end. In the spiritual sense, there is an end, because if we are intelligent enough that at one point in time, by the mercy of the Guru, we glance on the spiritual side and we make the effort to go towards the spiritual side, then that is available to us. But also Krishna, in his wisdom, because he doesn't want to condition us to, if we can use that word condition, to force us to come to him, he leaves the whole material world available to us. So you want to exercise your idea of being the Lord of all you survey. Here you are. It's there. Go for it. But the Lord, he gives us every opportunity to come to him. But because we want to enjoy in separation from the Lord, then of course The whole material cosmic manifestation is created for that purpose. Again, out of the mercy of the Lord. Because it's all based on free will, completely and totally. The allure of Maya is so strong. And Jiva Goswami discusses this at length in that treatise of his called Priti Sandarbha. But Jiva Goswami, he goes on to say that greater than the Jivan Mukta and greater than those who attain for liberation is a devotee. Such a devotee, whether he's in any of the rasas, a devotee is far, he is Santaras, even neutral ras, it makes no difference. A devotee is far superior, and he's extremely rare amongst millions and millions and millions of people. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Samahatma Sadurlabha. So the devotee is very rare. So it's a rare opportunity. To get out of this material world is a very, very rare opportunity. We have to take every advantage we possibly can and grab onto every opportunity we can to get out of this material world, no matter what. So, anyway, I
Hare
think,
Krishna.
is that okay?
Yeah, thank you very much, Prabhuji. Just one small question. So you said
Please.
they are eternally bound and eternally liberated, and we are in the middle. Who are we? Is
Yes.
it the devotees, or the aspiring devotees, or just jivas, or mankind, or who are we? Who are these ones in the middle, and who are the ones that are eternally bound?
Well, the vast majority are eternally bound, and we are
Okay.
in the eternally bound situation. But we have come from the middle. We haven't come from the spiritual world. We have come from the Tatashta. So the Tatashta is where we're on the borderline, we're on the margin, where we have the choice to go towards the spiritual side, and we have the choice to go towards the material side. Of course, we have chosen the material side, as the vast majority of the population of the universes have done the same thing. So we're in the middle. So then when we choose, then we're completely and totally eternally conditioned. And if we go on the other side, then that eternality also applies. We're eternally liberated. But then from the liberated state, then we have to develop our relationship with the Lord. And that relationship with the Lord, that comes also from the Tatashta, because when we're trained, we're in the middle. We're neither one or the other. But after mukti, then we begin to gain a relationship with the Lord. And that also requires training. How do we develop that relationship with the Lord? Yes, we know in theory that we're servants of Krishna. But in what way are we servants of Krishna? How do we develop that service attitude? How does it come from the stage of being simply theoretical to the actual stage where we're actually engaged in service to the Lord? So that we can lose our liberated status and come under mind's influence again if we commit offenses to the Lord from the Tatashta stage, or we commit offenses to the devotee. So we're because we're on the borderline of we can go one way or the other. There are so many examples of so many famous devotees in our line who just fell from the highest. Jad Bharat is one, Ajamil is another, that are mentioned in the Bhagavatam. In our own ISKCON, we have so many examples of so many devotees who fell by the wayside. Senior devotees, gurus, sannyasis fell by the wayside. So there's always that choice. So until we actually go into the spiritual world, you could say we're eternally conditioned. But at the same time, because we're in the middle, so to speak, we can make that choice to go, okay, this is it. I've had enough of the whole material conditioning, and I want to go on to the spiritual world. Where do I start? So that's the beginning stage. But that doesn't mean that we've yet reached the stage of devotion. We still have to go through the processes of cultivating that relationship with the Lord. Is that any good?
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you very much for that clarification. Now I'm beginning to understand what you are saying. So it's a good thing because a lot of us have this impression that we were in the spiritual world and then we made a mistake, we end with Krishna and therefore we have fallen. But now this is so good that that point has been cleared, that we were never in the spiritual world. We were in the Tathashta or in the borderline. And
Yes.
with our free will, we can choose to be eternally conditioned and just stay the way we are, or we make this journey to become Jiva Mukta or eternally liberated. And the journey doesn't even stop there. It is the beginning of going into the spiritual world. So,
Yes, and
thank
and
you.
if I would say a good verse to read in the Gita with regards to this, and read the various commentaries, of course, Prabhupada's, is 10:10, where Krishna says, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam uttanti te. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So we're already devoted to serving Krishna with love, but then we need more understanding by which we can actually get into the mood of a service attitude. And who's the highest person who's in the service attitude? That is Srimati Radharani. And what mood did Lord Chaitanya come to give us spiritual life in the mood of a devotee? He came in the mood of Radha, who's the highest devotee, to teach us how we can also be devotees. So this is a wonderful, beautiful subject matter which is unlimited, and we can go on forever, and it just increases. The bliss is constantly increasing, but we have to practically enter that mood, and we have to go beyond the theory and now put it into practice. That is our obligation. That is our objective. That is our goal. That is our everything. And that's what we have to reach for. When, oh, when will that day be mine? My offenses ceasing, taste for the name increasing. When, oh, when will your mercy shine? When, oh, when will that day be mine? Be mine, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. So we have to be it's a crying religion, as Gaur Govinda Swami used to say. It's a crying religion. We simply cry, beg for the mercy of the Lord, so we can enter into that realm. It's a great journey. It's an absolutely wonderful journey. And we have so much to observe, and we have so much to embrace, and so much to take in. It never stops. It never stops. Jai, is that okay?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. I know we've exhausted our time and run 10 minutes, and I apologize for that. We won't take any more questions. We will end the session here. Can I request Bhakta Mugo, are you able to close this session for us today? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I hope you can hear me. Thank you so much, Mataji, for the opportunity. And thank you so much, Your Grace Vidura Prabhuji. I feel like the topic on liberation, just as you are suggesting, we are challenged to plan for a talk, at least a week, as we can really know the differences even between our Mayavadi liberation, Christian liberation, right, and what is really what devotees are really anchoring for. It is actually even more than liberation, as Prabhuji has stated in his Krishna training. Thank you so much for the great talk. Without much time, I would like to
Jai,
request all the assembled.
Jai,
I like
thank
to
you.
request
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Krishna,
Hare,
Hare Hare,
Rama
Hare Ram,
Rama,
Rama,
Rama
Rama,
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 Hare
Rama, Hare
Hare
Hare.
Hare,
Hare
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha
Vanchakalpatarubhasya,
Kripa Sindhubhyev
Vindhyavachara,
Cha Patitanam
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 Pavanebhyo,
Pavanebhyo
Vaishnavibhyo
Vaishnavebhyo
Namo
Vaishnavibhyo
Namo Namaha.
Srila
Jai,
Prabhupada
thank you
ki
very much.
Jai. His Grace
Thank
Jai.
you
Guru
very much.
Prabhuji ki Jai. Granthra
Thank
Srimad
you very
Bhagavatam
much.
ki jai. Thank you, devotees, for joining in. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol.
Hare
Jai.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jai, thank you. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Good night, everybody. Hari
Hare
Bol.
Krishna. Hare Krishna Mataji, has this time changed?
Yes, because in England the time has changed. Our time remains the same.
All
But,
right.
so you have to join in at 5 o'clock now.
Oh dear. Haribol, I'm still at work then. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you so much. But you can listen to the recordings.
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Haribol.
Hare Krishna.